Your love is the best part, love is the best part. Your love is the best part, love is the best part. Even if it all falls apart, your love is the best part, love is the best part.
Kat and Daniela have been our friends separately for a few years before they actually married. I didn't know that they actually knew each other until they came together saying, oh, have you heard of this guy, Kat? Daniela's talking to me about him. It's like, wow, what a small world. Yeah. So they knew each other, or we knew them prior to them getting married. Watching them walk their process of getting married has been honestly so beautiful. It gives me like this desire for more in my own marriage, because their love has been so pure for one another and so intentional from the very beginning, really coming together as two whole people. Like, I know we came together kind of as two broken people and we're trying to work on our wholeness, and they came together so whole, so to watch, and so intentionally focused on their marriage. It was such a beautiful process to watch them get married.
Well, I mean, Kat's one of the most radical people I know. I've known him probably more intensely, obviously, than Daniela, and we did a lot of ministry with Kat. I'd never forget Kat coming down the very first time and seeing him dance and seeing him be just Kat and going, who is this guy? And really, I mean, I had the honor of marrying them, so it was very special for me because they're such an amazing couple, and I feel like it was a real honor when I got to be a part of their wedding. I mean, I just thought that was ridiculous. But Kat, I just admire Kat as an individual. We obviously admire them as a couple. That's why we wanted to interview them, because we just so love the way they love one another, and it's so apparent to everybody who comes in contact with them. But I mean, just as a man of God, I just really admire Kat, and then I know on the other end, now knowing Dee more, that we just really admire Dee, and so to see them come together, it's just really beautiful to watch two people who love Jesus so much and who have so much to offer as an individual come together and really learn how to work this thing out.
Yeah, I'll go first. That's it's interesting for me because I was passed around as a kid, like my grandparents, they adopted me at age actually at birth, but then at age 6, when I was brought to the States, I was passed around a lot, and so I ended up, moving like, I think it was 28 times before high school, and I was just in, different homes, uncle and aunt, and then back with my grandfather or whatever, and so for me, picture of marriage, it was always like, my uncle and aunt, or like, my mom and dad weren't married. Anyway, all that to say, like, my picture of marriage growing up was really confusing. I mean, because I didn't have, like a solid picture to look at for more than 6 months. I was constantly moving. So I think that the result of that was me wanting something solid, where when I was in high school, I would sit and like dream about having a family, and because I was always the brother, because I was always the cousin, the nephew or the grandson, but never the brother or the son,
Yeah.
So I really feel like the Lord redeemed my story, or just my childhood, and because many people, I've talked to a lot of people that kind of had a similar childhood, and a lot of them definitely don't love the Lord, and a lot of them are pretty angry at their parents, or, so marriage, all that to say, like, marriage is super important to me because I as a child, I never saw it. I used to pray, like, oh my gosh, right after my grandmother passed when I was 6. She was like the first mom that I knew. I remember like just lifting my head to God, like as a 6-year-old, and going, where did my mom go, you know? And I feel like God was a father to me, super young, like really, really young, and he guarded my heart from offense.
Wow.
He guarded my heart from what it could have turned into. And the crazy part is this. The crazy part is I got saved when I was 17, and the first prophetic word I ever got was this lady walked up to me and she said, the Lord says, I'm your father, I'm your mother, I'm your brother, and I'm your sister.
Wow.
It was so general, and everyone was like, you know, whoop-de-doo. But I wept because he was that father, that mother, that sister, that brother that I didn't have. And because it was him, my heart was protected, you know, from offense. And I was able to, as a grown man, sit with my father and sit with my mother on separate occasions. And literally, I had to convince them that I wasn't angry at them. Like my dad, he wouldn't believe me. He's like apologizing profusely, like, I wasn't there for you, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, Dad, I love you. Like, I'm not angry at you. And I had to explain to him, like, you may have not physically been there, but our Father, God, was there. And he guarded my heart. Literally, that is the only thing that I can think of that would make any sense to me, because I felt the temptation to be angry many times, many times. And I knew that was a door I couldn't open.
Wow.
My parents, they got married when I was about 4 years old. They had my sister already and myself, and neither one of them were saved. My dad was, he was a musician. He was on the road like 11 months out of the year until I was about 6 years old. And somewhere around 4 or 5, he started his journey with the Lord. And then my parents got married, and so they've now been together for 35 years. And I've seen them hit several different definitions of rock bottom. And I remember when I was in elementary school, I remember hearing them talk about divorce. And then when I was in high school, hearing them talk about divorce, you know, and I thought when I was 15 that was going to be it. I was completely sure that they were going to separate. And I just remember, I remember my dad, I just remember the fight that he had in him for our family. And I remember my mom saying, you know, even though her heart wasn't in it anymore, that she would still continue to seek reconciliation and healing in their marriage. And I saw them, you know, go through counseling and go through individual counseling and marital counseling together, and bring us kids in for counseling, and just begin this process of healing and restoration. And now, you know, now they've been together for 35 years, and it's like sometimes I see them.
They're crazy in love.
And I'm like, can you not be my parents when you're doing that right now? You know, when it's like they're like all over each other, and I'm like, okay, I didn't mean to walk in. And so, but it's amazing. It's amazing to go from what it was to see what it is now. But it gave me growing up this very sober reality of what marriage really was. And so that was the impression that was left on me at a very young age, was find someone that you can get through the hard times with. Find your best friend. Find someone who's going to stick it out through the lowest of the lows, because that's when it's going to count, not when everyone's happy and having a good time. So
for me, looking at my, you know, my childhood and going into marriage, I basically wanted the exact opposite, you know? So that's kind of how I used what I went through. I was just like, I don't want that, you know? I want what I knew in my heart to be true, that like the Lord was showing me just through his, like, how do I phrase it? His sovereign fathering of my heart. Like no one did it. It was him. He just did it. He was just there, you know? But that's kind of how, those are, I don't know if that makes any sense, but like when I was going into marriage, like that's how I was using my upbringing to like help shape like, you know, what I wanted my marriage to look like.
We met on, it was called the Summer of Love Tour back in 2007. So it was like this group of like 300 like ragamuffin hippie people traveling from Nashville to San Francisco, and it was so rad. And so he was on this tour, and I had joined on the tour towards the latter end of it, and I had gone on because I wanted, I wanted to introduce my brother to this whole world. I remember the first time that I saw him, he was walking through this parking lot, and I was like, okay. But I wasn't in that place. I had actually just gotten out of a relationship, and I wasn't in the place of looking for anyone. And really, because of the picture that I had seen growing up with marriage, it was something that I wanted, but because I saw how hard it could be, I didn't know if it was something I could say yes to. Because I knew it was going to take someone so special. So we meet on this tour, and I'm there because of my brother, and I'm wanting to introduce him to this whole world. And so meeting someone is like not even anywhere on my radar at all. And I don't know what happened.
We laughed.
Like I'd never laughed in my entire life. And my sister kept coming up to me. She ended up joining the tour, and she kept coming up to me, and she was like, I've never seen you laugh like this. I've never seen you smile like this. And people that I had done ministry with were on the tour, and they came up to me and they were like, what is going on with you? I've never seen you smile like this before. And my sister was like, I really think you like this guy. And I'm like, I don't. Like, I really believed that I didn't. And I just was like, the Lord's just doing something new, and I'm free. And, you know, but it was the very last day of the tour when all of a sudden reality set in. And it's like, oh, wait, we actually don't live this life where we like get to tour the country, and you know, I'm going back to LA and you're going back to Maui, and we go back to reality. And I remember saying to the Lord on that day, if that is what life could be like with someone, I could absolutely say yes to that.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
And so then we went back to our regular lives, and we just stayed friends. And so
I feel like it was such the grace of God that we worked through some major issues before we said yes.
yeah.
And it really allowed us to have, like, our first year was amazing. It was so much fun. It was so great. And I felt like we had built it off of becoming best friends during that time, during the 3 years that we were friends before.
And in that
marriage.
3 years, like I just think that we both had, because we were coming from such different lives, you know, we both had things that were sort of left unsaid and undone that we needed to see through and to deal with.
You know, I had dealt with some issues that I had in my heart, and you know, really came to the realization of like, man, this girl she's literally becoming one of my best friends, and I am ridiculously attracted to her. And if I don't open my mouth, I remember actually the moment we got into a fight via text. She was still here and I was on Maui. We got into a fight, and I remember thinking, like, I sent her this text and she didn't respond, and usually she responds like that, you know? But I remember feeling like the idiot guy in a movie who, if he didn't do something right then, he'd lose the girl forever. And so I called her. I called her right away because I knew she wasn't going to respond because we were in this fight. I called her right away and she didn't answer. So finally, I just texted her. I was like, can I pursue you now? Because I was on a Nazarite. I was on my second 1 year Nazarite vow where no relationships, no PG-13 movies, you know, no obviously alcohol, anything from the grapevine, the whole Nazarite deal. And I was like 3 months from ending that vow, and I literally, in a second, I said, God, I know you're gonna give me grace to do this. Literally, and I felt like the Lord smiled, like he was like, you are recognizing your time, you're recognizing your like, this is your moment. Don't be the idiot guy in the movie, go get the girl. And so
I love that.
I was like, I called her twice, she didn't answer, and I was like, screw it, I can't drive over to her house, I'm on Maui, you know? So I just sent her a text and I was like, can I pursue you now?
And that text for me it was such a big moment, because for me it was like that yes or no moment, because it wasn't just if you say yes, you may date this guy. Like, I knew marriage was on the other end of it. And so for me, that had always been the big question. Can you actually walk down that aisle? Can you actually, are you gonna freak out and run back into the bathroom and ask to be let out of this moment, or are you gonna walk down that aisle? And so I remember sitting on the floor reading this text, and I just had this moment of like, this is it. Can you do this or not? Because if you say yes, there's gonna be a ring around the corner. Like, I knew it. And so, but the fact that I could say yes and I was excited, was really huge. And for me, it went back to the scripture of perfect love casting out fear, because marriage had always kind of felt a little bit like prison. And that was the idea that I had was that like, you can have this much fun, but then at some point it's gonna feel like there's like shackles for some reason. And with him, it felt like freedom. It felt like I could be me completely. I could be alive completely. I could live my life in freedom and in joy, and we were gonna build a home and a family. And it was like, instead of just seeing it, only this far, I could just see all the way to the end. I could see us in our 80s and 90s, and with grandkids, I could see it all. And that's when I knew, let's do it.
That's awesome.